So as the first round concludes in the round of 16 in the NASCAR Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, we are now about to enter in the next round, in the round of 12 for the Cup guys. So now it goes from 16 to 12. So tonight
Just
we
waiting
are
for the
going to
yellow light.
recap. So tonight we are going to recap uh, on the NASCAR Roval this weekend with the Xfinity Series, from one driver scoring his first career victory to another one scoring his first win for Team Penske. So he's Chris. I'm Corey. Welcome to the C+J Speedway Show. And welcome back, everybody, to the C+J Speedway Review. My name is Corey Hoffnagel. So tonight we are going to recap the Charlotte Roval in what was, I'd have to say, probably the most ultimate wild card race of the season. Now, even though I like Talladega in the wild card in the playoffs the most, I have to say, the Charlotte Roval this past weekend brought a lot of excitement. And not to mention, this past Sunday, we had really great race going up to the last lap, and and not to mention it was also an elimination race as well. So as we go from 16, we go now to 12 teams, 12 drivers that are in this playoff. So now it's going to get really interesting as the playoffs moves on, and who's going to be out, we'll just have to see. So to the hotline now, we are going to go to my man, who is always a pleasure of chatting on the show, who always does the Loki and DeBroni show on Tuesday nights. His name is Chris Burns. How we doing?
Man, if I have to pay you more for entrances like these, I'll sign the check now. I don't care. I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. You are right. The Charlotte Roval far exceeded my expectations, and even got a non-regular NASCAR watcher that I will talk about later when we go to the Cup Series to watch the race in its entirety, and even he had a good time. But the big news that I can think of right now is the huge announcement, I believe happened just after we recorded last week, which was Ryan Preece full-time gig. Talk about it, my friend.
All right, so Friday it was announced JTG Doherty Racing has signed Ryan Preece to a full-time deal in the 47 car for the team next season. And I just look at this kid, and I kind of thought to myself, all right, last year when he made his Xfinity debut for Joe Gibbs Racing, I kind of thought to myself, he's kind of an average driver, even though he runs really well when it comes to the modifieds. I bet you Gibbs was kind of saying, okay, why don't we take a chance on this kid and see what he can do? Well, first off, he ends up finishing second in his debut at New Hampshire. Then second start, he ends up winning at Iowa. So now Gibbs is like, okay, so I don't know if he's going to be full-time potential, but why don't we put him in a part-time schedule for 2019 and see what this kid could do? Because, of course, you have Brandon Jones and then Christopher Bell that are only running full-time for Gibbs this year. So Preece ends up winning at Bristol in March, and he's been having some really good runs the last couple of months, so forth. I mean, when I was watching him driving the 18 car in some Xfinity race, I mean, there were races where he was running good, but then there were some that he couldn't close the deal. And I would say with 2 career wins in Xfinity, that gave him pretty much the lock of, okay, now team owners are looking at him and saying, we want this kid. And sure enough, JGD gave him the call after AJ Allmendinger got the boot on Wednesday or last Tuesday or so forth. And now here he is driving the 47 car in the Cup Series. And like I said last week, JTG Doherty Racing is not really the best team, but again, they're not really the worst team because, they've been pretty consistent throughout the years. But, there are some tracks where they could work on. But other than that, they're not really too bad. And I think he'll do just fine.
Sure. And I know he's been on a lot of – uh-oh.
And I don't know if we just lost him there for just 1 second, but
I'm experiencing technical difficulties over here, Corey. Give me just
Okay.
a moment.
All right. No
I
problem.
don't quite know what's going on, but I'm going
All
to
right.
figure it out.
Okay.
If you can hear me, I apologize, everybody. Don't quite know what the story is, but let's try this again. Okay. I'm sorry. I had some technical difficulties here, Corey.
Okay. All right. So do you want me to
All right,
start?
sorry about that.
All right.
No, don't start over. I can pretty much sum it all up about Ryan Preece.
Okay.
I'm sure that there's been a lot of Cup teams that he's been on the radar. He's come up from trucks to the Xfinity Series that first time in New Hampshire, like you mentioned, comes up big second place. Every time he's gone there, he's done really well. There's only been a few, bumps in the road or hurdles that he's had to jump over. This is not a surprise. What was a surprise to me that he went to JTG Doherty rather than another team. But I like this. I like this because he's in a middle of the road, fund wise team. He's going to have to prove himself in that type of car before one of the bigger teams comes knocking on his door. This was a good move. I agree with it, and I'm looking forward to seeing Preece in that 47 next year.
Absolutely. I mean, I just look at this kid, he has the talent. I mean, the fact that, I watch him in the modified series, I mean, he's a really good modified racer, no question about it. But I just look at it, next year. I mean, even though he's going to have to race some of the races where it's going to be long and so forth, but I think, he should be all right in that ride. And also, not to mention, I also want to point out that Daniel Hemrick is going to be moving up to the Cup Series full time next year. So it looks like for the 2019 Rookie of the Year campaign, it's going to come down between Ryan Preece and Daniel Hemrick.
Now, are they going to be running full-time schedules, or are they going to swap their time? Are they going to go for the championship in the Xfinity Series? Do you know quite what their status is right now?
Both of them are going to be running full-time next year.
Okay. So they're gonna be going for that championship. It'd be great if one or both of the rookies made it into that class of 16 in 2019.
And now the big question is since Daniel Hemrick's moving up to Cup, the big question is who's going to replace him down in Xfinity. And I kind of thought about this, so I'm thinking to myself, all right, so I really think Richard Childress should take a chance on. He should take a chance on pretty much Ross Chastain, because you look at it, he already won Las Vegas. So now a lot of team owners are looking at him and they're saying, okay, we could use him as like a full-time potential because, I just look at it, Chastain's a Chevrolet driver, and I think it would be a really good fit for him. There's no question about it. And then I also want to go back to Chase Briscoe, even though he won the race at Charlotte this past week. So this one, I also had a lot of other thinking. So if you saw in his interview that, he was working like part-time, like, working in like the garage shops. He was sleeping on couches and whatever it is and so forth. Even though last year he had a full-time ride with Brad Keselowski Racing. So listen to my crazy theory for just 1 second. So let's say if Kurt Busch decides to leave Stewart-Haas Racing and decide to put Cole Custer in the 41 car for Stewart-Haas, I really think now, if everybody's watching out there, this is kind of my theory. So I think Tony Stewart should take a chance on this kid. Put him in the 00 car in the Xfinity Series full time, because the way I saw it on Saturday, I didn't expect Briscoe to be a road racer at all. But you look at it this past Saturday, I mean, he hit his marks right. He came through the turns really well, and, he shifted where he needed to shift and so forth. But yeah, that's kind of my theory. And I think that's what should happen. Let's say if that swap ends up happening or whatever it is and so forth. But I really think Chase Briscoe deserves to get a full-time ride in Xfinity. There's no question about it. I mean, I know Austin Cindric got the full-time ride while he's running for both teams, but then yet again, he's already on the verge of being eliminated out of the first round. No question about that. But, I just look at Briscoe. I mean, he has the talent. I mean, I remember last year when he won the truck race at Homestead, and that was his only win before, BKR ended up shutting down. And then you go back to July where he ends up winning on the dirt race at Eldora. So, but I just look at it, I think if Briscoe doesn't get the full-time ride at Stewart-Haas, I look at him.
Yeah, I agree with everything you had to say. And I don't think I could disagree with you in any of that, to be honest. But now we have some racing to talk about.
Right.
The Charlotte Roval, both series run the Charlotte Roval. I loved the idea. I loved watching both these races. And the Xfinity race was almost as exciting as the Cup race. Tell us about it, man.
Oh, there's no question about that.
All right, so again, I'm seeming to be having some difficulties here. I get you, I lose you, I get you, I lose you. I think I have you again, which is
Right.
fantastic. But we had a brand new winner, first time ever on the Xfinity Series. Tell us all about it, Corey Huffnagel.
All right, so we had the Drive for the Cure 200 presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina for the Xfinity Series on Saturday. And what a race it was this past weekend as Chase Briscoe ends up getting his first career win in the Xfinity Series, driving the 98 car for Beyond G Debency, owned by Tony Stewart and Stewart Haas Racing himself. So this was the first of the two races this past weekend on the Charlotte Roval, and I just looked at this race this past Saturday and I thought, all right, so this was pretty much a short race, 55 laps, and the stages were not even that long either. But what I saw this past Saturday, was great racing, pretty much all around. And then, one part I had to take away from this race was definitely Daniel Hemrick. I mean, I would say he had the top five, if not probably the winning car. And there were times on the restarts where he was just right on the leader and so forth. And you thought, oh, okay, he's going to take the lead like within pretty much the next lap or so. But then what happened was he ended up screwing up in the chicane area, coming off that last turn at the start finish line. And just remember, guys, the rule is, if you blow by that chicane or if you miss that chicane, you have to stop at the front straightaway. We'll come to a complete stop and then just go from there. So I really think that took away his chance. But, with Hemrick coming in the top 10, it wasn't too bad. But then yet again, like if he hadn't messed up in the chicane coming in the last corner, I really think he could have ended up winning the race. But other than that, you had probably one multi-car wreck. I think it was on lap 35 that took out some really good potentials, like let's see, Michael Annett, and then Brendan Gaughan, and then Ryan Truex, who was a playoff driver as well, and then Ty Majeski, Andy Lally, and then of course the 8-car. I don't know who drives the 8-car, but it certainly as heck wasn't Junior. I can tell you that. But I just look at it. I really think it was a success. But I think if you go back to this race this past Saturday, I really think they could have just extended the laps just a little bit more. I think that's the one thing I really want to I really wanted them to see because, you look at all the laps on the Xfinity races. You go to Watkins Glen, it's only 82. You go to Mid-Ohio, 75. And you go to Road America, which is 45. Now, I get the fact that they have 45 at Road America because it's pretty much the biggest road course there is. And, the stages are like, I don't know, 10 and 15 and 10. I don't know. But no, all I can just say is, the Charlotte Roval race this past weekend, it was fun. I thought it was exciting. And I'm hoping that next year, both of these races could be pretty much the cutoff because then that would make it really exciting.
And for this race, for the Xfinity Series, as exciting as it was, I know they do a few more road courses than the Cup guys on this level. And it's great practice for them because I was saying last night on the Logan Jabroni show, Sunday watching the Charlotte Roval, I've said it with you, more road courses need to be on this schedule in the coming years. Now we're going to have 3. I thought the races were great. Again, just that one multi-car wreck. It seemed like to me that the Xfinity guys were a little bit better on the Roval than the Cup guys. It just seemed like they were easing their way through it. Yes, there was the one wreck. Yes, there was a couple, bumps and bruises here and there, but you really didn't see a lot of calamity in this race.
No, I don't think there was, but then there was that one part. There were a few parts of the racetrack in this race where there were some guys that were going into the corner a little bit too hard, and then that kind of got them spun out going into the corner. And then, of course, you had Justin Allgaier coming off a pit road, and then I think somebody got into the back of him, and he went spinning as well.
Mm-hmm. But I just thought it was a great race overall. And Corey, if you will give us the fantastic list of finishers, we can do happies and sads and the picks.
All right. So going on to the results, you have Chase Briscoe winning the race. You have Justin Marks finishing in second. Austin Cindric comes home in third. Ryan Preece fourth. Christopher Bell rounds out the top five. Then you have Matt Tifft in sixth. Cole Custer in seventh. Kaz Gralla in eighth. Tyler Reddick in ninth. And then Daniel Hemrick rounds out the top 10. So other notables, you have playoff drivers Ryan Reed in 11th. Ross Chastain in 12th. Then you have Elliott Sadler 14th, Justin Allgaier 15th, Ryan Truex 16th, and then Brandon Jones in 22nd. And then looking down on the list, the only thing I can pretty much read from here, would be David Starr 27th. You'd have Ty Majeski in 34th. And then you have Ryan Sieg in 36th, Andy Lally 37th. And then Landon Castle 38th, Jeff Green 39th, and J.J. Yaley in 40th.
So J.J. Yaley keeps Jeff Green out of the bottom spot. Way to go, J.J. Yaley. I've never had faith in you. I don't know if anybody ever has. But that's the name of the game. So, Corey, give me a happy and give me a sad for this race.
So my happy for this race would definitely have to go to Chase Briscoe. I mean, like I said earlier, this was basically a kid now that's been working at like garage shops and has been going from ride to ride. Not to mention, he's been sleeping on people's couches as well. Because, let's face it, the kid needs a full-time ride. And I think with him going to Stewart Haas Racing next year, I think that would be the perfect fit for him. And then my sad for this race would definitely have to go to, would definitely have to go to none other than Daniel Hemrick. Now, even though he finished in 10th, I would still say that if he hadn't screwed up with the chicane coming off that last corner, he could have had a winning car.
I don't disagree. I kind of went a different direction. My happy is Austin Cindric once again making playoff-wise. Needed a great finish, and certainly third does not suck at a track like this where anybody could have won it. If I have to give like a mini happy, I'm going to give it to Chase Briscoe. You're the inaugural Charlotte Roval Xfinity winner. Good for you. You earned it. My sad's going to go to Brandon Jones. Not the best day for this kid. 20th on this course. Some people see it as a win, a moral win, if you will. I just see it as a bad day for a kid who needs a good run. So that's why Brandon Jones. Now, going to the picks this week, 2 close finishes for good old Corey and good old Chris. So we will start with Corey. Corey took Justin Allgaier as his lock. He finished 15th. You took Matt Tifft as your sleeper. He finished 6th. That's a total of 21. You divide that by 2. Corey, you sit with a 10.5 for the Xfinity race.
All right.
I took Ryan Preece as my lock. He finished 4th. I took Austin Cindric as my sleeper. He finished 3rd. That's a total of 7 divided by 2, and that's a 3.5 for the week. So once again, my Xfinity knowledge or guesses, no bounds. Fantastic. And now, quick question for you.
What's up?
In the event in 2019 that we have another successful run for the Xfinity Series, for the Cup Series on the Charlotte Roval, do we introduce the Roval to the Truck Series going forward?
I would have to say, I'd have to say yes.
I cannot disagree. See, it's just too easy with you sometimes. Just too damn easy.
Yeah.
So now, the Bank of America Roval 400 Cup Series gimmick. And wow, if there's not a lot of times I say that a driver shouldn't go for the win.
Right.
But if a certain driver had listened to his spotter and listened to his crew chief and said, all you have to do is follow the leader and you will make the playoffs. But instead, this man, this competitor, this 7-time Cup Series champion decides to go for the win, spins himself out, spins the leader out. And who knocked on the door and said, hey, guys, see you later. Good old Ryan Blaney sneaks by, gets the win at the Charlotte Roval, the inaugural, first ever, can't ever take it away from him, Charlotte Roval champion. And Corey, this was, wow. For a road course race, again, I like road course racing. I like it more for the, intrigue, the left, the right, the slowdowns, the speed ups. But boy, this had everything I wanted in a road course: speed,
Absolutely.
thrills, excitement, the last lap pass to win the race, the last lap spin, taking the former champion, the 2017 champion, pushing him to the side, taking the 7-time champion, pushing him out of the playoffs, and the young gun sneaks through to win the race. What was your favorite part of this race?
I would just have to say the last lap in general, because from what I saw it in my view perspective, you know, I didn't really expect to see Jimmy Johnson to be a really good road racer, even though he has one road course win on his ballot, and that was back in 2010 at Sonoma. And you just go back to that last lap. So they were coming off of Charlotte 4, and they're coming down to like the chicane area. And I thought, okay, if Johnson can make a clean slated pass coming through that chicane, even though that's been pretty much the trouble spot this past weekend, I think, there's probably one of two things. There's either A, he might boot the 78 out of the way, or B, he's going to try everything he can, to win the race, or if not, finish second, because I think he was, pretty much in a really good spot in the points. But from what I saw, it looked as if, once Jimmy hit the brakes, then you saw the car wheel hop. And then once it started wheel hopping, there's no way you can control it after that. So not only he takes himself out, but he ends up taking Martin Truex Jr. out. And I'm glad that, what Truex did after the race. I mean, he showed his displeasure. I mean, he gave the 48 a bump, saying like, hey, I didn't like what you just did on the last lap and so forth. And you could just look at Jimmy's interview. He said, I was just trying to go for the win. And, yeah, you would say that, he was driving a little bit too hard. But then yet again, when it's the playoffs, you got to do everything you can, to win in advance. That's pretty much the name of the game. And, we've seen that happen with some guys where, they've had like 2 crappy races and then they go to the third race and try and win. But I think with Jimmy Johnson, I kind of said to myself, all right, even if he makes the next round, I don't know if he can get past, the round of 12, because if you look at this next round coming up, everybody's going to want to win Dover on Sunday because, nobody wants to go to Talladega and just pretty much either A, run conservative, B, try and go for the win, or C, just, race your guts out to see whatever happens and so forth. Because if you screw up the first 2 races in the round of 12, then you got to go to Kansas and try and win it all. But I just look at Jimmy Johnson this year, he hasn't really had the best of season, that he's ever like remembered and so forth. But I would have to say if Johnson is going to win a race, I think, he's going to win maybe one to close out the season. And I think he's going to win at Martinsville in my prediction.
Not a bad prediction. I was actually thinking Dover this coming weekend because he does have a pretty decent track record at Dover when he's not wrecking the field in 2016 as I'm watching Kevin Harvick try to win a race and Johnson takes out 18 cars. But that's a different story for a different time. You can see that anytime you want, Johnson takes out the field. Always a fun time.
Right.
And I'm having technical difficulties again, but I got you now. One of the best things that I enjoyed about this race was that I said it last week, level playing field. Everybody had the same shot to win. Everybody had the same opportunity, if you will. You watched at different times some of the, I know we call them underfunded cars, but in many other races, they are the slower cars, really come up and shine in this race. One that struck me, and it's not my happy and it's not my sad and it's not on any of my list, but it's on your list, and we'll talk about it in a minute. Jamie McMurray impressed the hell out of me this race.
Yeah, I do agree.
But there is one other thing I want to say about the Charlotte Roval is I watched it on a TV with no sound while we were watching football at the Man Cave, Mark Azarju's Man Cave, and I had the radio feed in my ear. And if there's one thing I can say about listening to this race on the radio, is PRN sucks. The most boring Lay's potato chip regular flavor vanilla milkshake radio broadcast ever in the history of ever. PRN sucks. And that's that. So now let's get to the finishing order. We'll get to happies and sads and picks.
All right, so Ryan Blaney ends up getting his first win for Team Penske in the number 12 Ford, followed by Jamie McMurray in second, Clint Boyer in third, Alex Bowman in fourth. Kurt Busch rounds out the top 5. Then you have Chase Elliott in 6th, AJ Allmendinger in 7th, Jimmy Johnson in 8th, Kevin Harvick in 9th, and Joey Logano rounds out the top 10. So other notables, you have Ryan Newman 11th, Denny Hamlin in 12th, Matt DiBenedetto in 13th, Martin Truex Jr. 14th, Regan Smith in 15th. Then you have Eric Almirola in 19th, Daniel Suarez 21st, Ty Dillon 22nd, Daniel Hemrick 23rd, Kyle Larson in 25th, Jeffrey Earnhardt 26th, Justin Marks 27th, Eric Jones 30th, Brad Keselowski 31st, Kyle Busch 32nd, and then Austin Dillon rounds out 39th. There you go. I like that.
I am having the worst time. Again, I'm on the performance right now. It's all well, guys, I apologize. I'm having the worst time here. Corey, you got me back?
I have you back, yeah.
Well, I'm going to do it again. I'm on the Poor Performance Racing Network. That's where I'm recording.
Yeah.
So now, yeah, I know that I've said that joke 3 times, but I don't know what you can and can't hear with my technical difficulties tonight. That might change next week. I might record not in the underground studio. I might record in a different room in the house. So
right.
Maybe we can get these technical difficulties shaken out. All right. So a happy and a sad from you, my friend.
All right. So my happy this weekend. Yeah, definitely have to go to Ryan Blaney because, I knew that this kid was going to score his first win for Penske, but it was only a matter of when. And he pretty much got that win at the right time. And, I was really happy with that team. And I do expect more out of Blaney coming into this next round. And hopefully he can get another win for the 12th. And then my sad would definitely have to go to Kyle Larson now, even though he's already in the next round based on points wise and where everyone else was at, but you just go back, and I just want to take this away for 1 second, but you just go back to, how they were fixing the car and how he was out there like with a damaged car, even though now NASCAR has the crash policy whatsoever. And of course, I think the rule is that, if you don't meet minimal speed, then you're pretty much out of the race. But there was one part, I think, coming to the checkered flag, he pretty much crossed the start finish line in 25th. And I think that finish pretty much proved to him that, he made it into the round. And, the fact that Jones already got eliminated and, of course, Austin Dillon got eliminated as well. So, but yeah, but actually the funny part was I think it was Larson, Almirola, and then I also want to say, I also want to say Bowman made it in the next round on a tiebreaker. So that pretty much resulted in Jimmy Johnson being out.
Mm-hmm. But again, let's go back to the radio correspondence between not only Johnson Spotter, but Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson. All you have to do is follow Truex.
Yeah.
Follow the 78, you're in. I understand the competitive nature of Jimmy Johnson. You don't get to be a 7-time champion by, sucking down quarter-pound cheeseburgers and playing Xbox. You have skill that he's used 7 times. He hasn't had a season this bad since his rookie campaign. And I don't want to say this bad, but it really, for his standards that he has set for himself, this was a poor season.
Yeah.
Man, again, stay in that line, and we're having a different conversation here. But, Jimmy Johnson's a competitor. He chose to go for the win, and unfortunately, it cost him dearly. Again, it's tough to feel bad for him, but I do feel bad for him. I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Anytime you can beat a multiple-time champion, you're among the best of the best.
Right.
And boy, I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to go on. You got your happy and your sad. I feel that we agree on the happy. Ryan Blaney, very thrilled for him. Again, you can't take this away from him. The inaugural winner of the Charlotte Roval 400 Bank of America, and had the presence of mind, right place, right time. Avoid that wreck. Get to the checkers. My sad, Brad Keselowski. To watch him drive straight into that wall, and it
Yeah,
was like your controller disconnected and your car just kept going. It was
right.
like watching a bad Xbox game. And I felt bad because he was really running good. And not that he needed this to move forward, but this certainly didn't help his cause any. And I like Brad Keselowski. I felt terrible for him when I watched him hit that wall. And then, what was, I think, 8 other cars
Yeah, there were
barreled
like
in right
probably
behind him.
like 5 other cars that pretty much crashed after that.
Mm. So, yeah, I'm going to give him my sad for the week. So, all right, I'm Forgetful Jones now. Did we do the running order?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, well, now we move on to the picks. How about that?
All right.
Another close race. Another close race in the picks. We will start with me. I took MTJ as my lock. He finished 14th. I took Ryan Blaney as my sleeper. He finished first. I took Denny Hamlin as my hopeful. He finished 12th. You add that up, you get 27. You divide that by 3. My finish inside the top 10 was a 9.
Hmm.
On the other side, Jay Allmendinger, who came in 7th. He took Chase Elliott, who came in 6th. He took Jamie McMurray with the very surprising second place position for this race. That's a total of 15. You divide that by 3, and Corey comes away this week's Cup Series champion with a finish of 5. So again, congratulations to you, my friend. Now,
Thank
at the
you.
beginning of the round, we each chose 4 drivers we thought would be out by the end of the first round. I took Jimmy Johnson, Alex Bowman, Austin Dillon, Kyle Larson. Bowman and Larson and Boyer all move on. I believe Dillon's out. Am I
Yes.
correct on that?
Yep.
Okay. Corey, in a strange little fit of genius, once again, he took Jimmy Johnson, Alex Bowman, Denny Hamlin, and Austin Dillon. Of Corey's 4, 1 actually succeeded and moved on. So I was 50
Yep.
50, whereas you were, batting 750 on this one. We each picked an early championship prediction. We both chose Kevin Harvick. Do you still stand behind that pick?
I still stand behind him, and I just look at this next round and I say to myself, all right, so Harvick already won at Dover back in June. He's won at Talladega before, and he's won at Kansas before. So I would have to say, I could see Harvick winning at either Dover, sweeping the season, or he could possibly win at Kansas because we know how the 4 car is, on the mile and a half. But of course, you look at Talladega, it's pretty much the ultimate crapshoot. You never know what's going to happen, and you just got to be at the right time. But yeah, I can definitely see Harvick going smooth in this next round, depending on what happens.
I'm standing behind my pick as well, not to be a homer, but like you said, we got tracks coming up that he is successful at
Yeah,
in the next round. Now, if you move to the third round, you have tracks he's been successful at and one that he's struggled at times, which is Martinsville.
yeah,
So I look at all the speedways coming up, all the short tracks coming up. I can see him taking 2 or 3 of these races, and especially when you get to the last race before the championship, it's Phoenix. And
yeah.
we all know when the 4-car rolls into Phoenix, everybody's not talking about who's going to win. They're talking about who's going to finish second behind Harvick.
Right.
So, and I'm not blowing smoke up his butt. It just, we all know he's the desert dominator. So if he has to do that like he did a few years ago and win Phoenix just to move on to the championship 4, it's pretty much a good guarantee that you're going to see that happen.
I mean, I wouldn't, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens either.
All right. So as we've gone through the Charlotte Roval, as much as we'd love to stay here, as much as we'd love to run this race 10 times to determine a champion, we don't. We are moving on to Dover, Delaware this weekend. The Xfinity Series and the Cup Series will be running. The Truck Series will return in 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually,
October 13th.
next Saturday.
Oh, is that? Oh, yeah. You know what? I'm doing my math. I thought it said October 13th on my schedule. I'll have to look at that again.
Yeah. So that would be next Saturday.
You are absolutely right. It's October already. Son of a
Yep.
gun. Corey, don't get old. This will happen to you. All right, so tell us about the Xfinity race at Dover, my friend.
Okay, so we have the Bar Harbor 200 for the Xfinity Series playoff race. So just remember, guys, this is the first elimination race in the round of 12 for this series. So if anybody's not confused or whatever, but 3 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock Eastern time on NBCSN. You can stream it live on the NBC Sports app, and then of course you have the Motor Racing Network.
The voice of NASCAR.
And they'll be back this weekend coming up. So we're excited to see them in action on the radio. So just remember Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90 if anybody has that or if anybody's subscribed. So I want to look at the entry list. So it looks the same as usual. So you have the playoff drivers, but I'm looking through the entry list. You have some different drivers that are going to be some in different cars. So you have Shane Lee, who's going to be in the 3 car this weekend. You have Ryan Preece, that'll be in the 18. You have Spencer Gallagher in the 23, and then you have John Hunter Nemechek in the 42. Chase Briscoe, coming off the win of the Charlotte Roval, is going to be in the 60 car for Roush Fenway this weekend. So, yeah, this is basically a list of drivers, that are on this list so far.
All right. Well, I looked over the entry list, and I wanted to pick a lock and a sleeper that one doesn't need the win. He just needs to. He doesn't need to. Let's be clear. If you're gonna throw your fist in the air and say, "I'm gonna be your champion," this is a race that Christopher Bell needs to win. So
Yeah.
not needs to win, but again, just cement yourself, kid. Be that Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex kind of guy. My sleeper needs the win. He needs the win to advance. He needs the win to get himself out of elimination trouble. My sleeper is going to be Justin Allgaier.
Yeah, see my lock. So I'm looking at this entry list, and I thought to myself, all right, I know that Allgaier won the race here back in June or May or whatever, and so forth. And I could possibly agree to you. I think this is going to be a race where Allgaier, is going to be a one to beat. Especially that he needs a win because the first 2 races in the playoffs haven't been really good to him so far. But I'm actually going to go a different route on this. So my lock for this weekend would definitely have to go to Elliott Sadler because he finished second to him back in May. So I would just look at him and I just say, you know what, this guy really needs a win, and I'm hoping that he could win a race before he closes out his career. And not to mention, hopefully he can go to the championship in November and he can win that championship that he's ever so dreamed of, within the last few years in the Xfinity Series and whatnot. Now, my sleeper, I'm going to have to go with Daniel Hemrick because should have won the race last Saturday at the Roval if he hadn't screwed up at the chicane. But, I'm going to be taking a close eye on him this weekend. And there has been races where, he has been close, but then, there has been times where he just hasn't been closing the deal and, he just hasn't, been there at the end. But I just look at him right now. I mean, yeah, he's got the talent. I mean, he's running really good. No question about it. But the kid really needs a win.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I missed I was listening to your dissertation and I missed who you picked as a sleeper.
Daniel Hemrick.
Okay. See, I'm trying to look back through the notes because I'm in a new notebook now to go back to the Dover picks that we made last time just to see how close we were, and I can't find it. But I should look at it earlier or after the show, not while you're telling me why Daniel Hemrick is your sleeper.
Right.
I'm unprofessional as hell this week. My apologies. Long day, even longer week. But now we move on to the Cup Series. And when I look at the playoffs and the playoff drivers that have moved on to the round of 12, it's difficult. It's kind of difficult. And I said I was only going to pick playoff drivers going forward. It's kind of difficult to fill the third spot on my picks. So I'm going to ask you to make your picks first. I have my lock and my sleeper already written down. I'm desperate for a hopeful. I'm hoping maybe you can shed some light on some of this.
Okay.
So let me hear your picks, my friend.
All right. So just for the race or just playoffs in general?
Oh no, the Cup Series. We'll talk about those playoff guys in just a little
Okay.
bit.
So let's see. So for the Cup race on Sunday, so my lock for this weekend, I was doing a little bit of thinking on this. So I thought, okay, I know Harvick's won here back in May, and there has been a couple guys that have run Dover really well in the past. So my lock for this weekend, and this one was kind of a tough one, but I'm gonna have to go with Kyle Busch because even though he already has that win, now this is the next round, but I'm hoping that he can get this win on Sunday, move on to the next round, so then that out of the way he wouldn't have to worry about going to Talladega and trying to play either conservative or pretty much win the race in general and so forth. Now, my sleeper, I'm going to have to go with Kyle Larson because he had a really good car last week at the Roval. And let's be honest, I mean, there was a few races where he's led the most laps but didn't score the win. And I really think with Dover, Larson has run really well here before. And, he did finish second one time, but I'm hoping that this could be a race where he can end up winning and moving on and so forth. Let's see. My hopeful, if I'd had to pick one, let's see. If I had to pick a hopeful, I'm gonna have to go with Alex Bowman because now that he's in the next round, I really want to see what this kid can do. Now, he's been consistent, but he just hasn't been running as great, compared to what Chase Elliott has done this year and Jimmy Johnson has done this year. But I would say if Bowman doesn't win the race this weekend, there's probably maybe a 50-50 shot, he could win Talladega next week.
Okay, I like it and I support it. So
All right.
I'm going to go from the bottom to the. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do it the same way you did it. Lock through hopeful. I'm obviously going to take Kevin Harvick as my lock. His past success this past spring race was phenomenal. He's the guy when it comes to the miles, the mile and a half. Some of the bigger tracks, he's had faulty moments, but I can't look at anybody else right now and think, I'm going to pick them over him. Although your pick of Kyle Busch, although not surprising, just as intelligent as the pick of Harvick. So sorry about the stammer stutter thing going on here. My sleeper, I'm picking a guy who needs a rebound. And after his controller unlocked and he drove straight into the wall, I'm hoping Brad Keselowski can pick up the pace and take a bad negative weekend and turn this weekend into a positive.
Yeah.
I also have Alex Bowman as my hopeful for many of the same reasons as you. But one thing that the reason I really want him to win the race, and if I put a star next to this, and I'm going to, he could have easily been my lock if he had more success on tracks like this. But this is a guy I really want to see win. The last few weeks, to see and hear the name Alex Bowman, every time you look at the crawler at the end of the stages, his name has been there. He's come up. And he's a guy that really deserves a win. Not needs a win. Deserves a win.
Yeah.
You just got to get there.
Yeah.
So now, at the beginning of the first round of playoffs, we each made 4 picks as who we thought were going to be booted out of the first round. We already talked about that. But now, Corey, I want to know, as you're looking at the round of 12, who are the next 4 guys to be bumped?
Boy, all I can just say is this one is a tough one. But I would
It
have to
only
say,
gets tougher, man. Stop being a baby. It only gets tougher.
I mean, it's just tough to decide, but I just look at it. I would have to say my first 4 drivers that are going to be out of this next round, I think are going to be Bowman, Almirola, Kurt Busch, and this one might be a little bit of a surpriser, Clint Boyer.
Okay. So when I look at my list, I have Boyer on my list. I have Bowman on my list. So we're 2 for 2. Now here's where things are going to get hairy when we come 3 races from now. We do the recap and we come back to this list. The next 3 races are not going to be good to Chase Elliott. As much as I like this kid, as much as I want to see him succeed, not his year. So I got Boyer, Bowman, Elliott, and this is going to piss a few people off, especially the beautiful young lady that tolerated me for the last 4 years and will tolerate me hopefully for the rest of my life. Oh man, with his string of bad luck, I see Kyle Larson getting booted at the end of this round.
That is a tough one.
It was difficult to look at that list. I like Almirola. I like his chances of moving forward. Another guy like Bowman, who in the last few weeks, you're hearing his name more and more. Why is that? Not because he's sexy, not because he's rich and famous, but because he's putting the performance out on the asphalt where it belongs.
Right.
If I have to disagree with any one of your picks, and I'm really surprised at the Kyle Busch pick, I may have to veto Almirola. And I'm sure, as I saw your face, crinkle and crumble when I said Kyle Larson, I'm sure you'd veto my pick of Kyle Larson.
Yeah, see, I look at it, I would probably say, Larson, let's go back to Kansas back in May. He almost won the race there. He led pretty much 100 laps until he got in a little bit of a mishap whatsoever. And I know Dover, he's run good there before, but you just look at this season. I mean, yes, he hasn't scored the win yet, but let's be honest. I mean, the kid's been running decent, but yet again, I really want to see him run better. And I want to see him, prove that he could be a championship contender come November. But I just look at it, everybody's going to want to win Dover Sunday. And then, of course, you go to Talladega, it's a crapshoot, and you just have to just expect the unexpected. And, you just go to Kansas if you don't do well in the first 2 races. But I just look at Larson. I do want to see him make this next round, but I don't know if he's going to get the championship 4, though.
I'm gonna agree to disagree. I agree with everything you said, but we've talked about it before. This is not exactly Kyle Larson's year, and maybe after a fantastic 2017, maybe this was the 2018 that brings you from having your head in the clouds to having your butt on the ground.
Right.
This was definitely a learning year. What we're going to see going forward in 2019 is, does he take 2018 and say, okay, you know what? Wasn't my best year. Let's put it in the past. We're rolling trucks into Daytona in February. Everyone's rolling in new cars, shirts, new season. Now he's got a new wife. So everything's new. Let's hope that Kyle Larson takes the stain or the foul taste in the mouth of 2018, rolls it forward, makes 2019 early pick right here. I know we did it at the beginning of the season. I'm going to do this now. One of my early picks for the championship for the year 2019, having not run a race and not even in 2019 yet, is Kyle Larson.
I definitely would agree on that too. And also, speaking of 2019, did you hear? I guess NASCAR is coming out with the rules package for next year. They're going to be running the All-Star package at intermediate tracks next season.
Yes, so, I thought that was a great idea.
See, my thought about it is, okay, they only ran the All-Star package at the All-Star race this year. So I kind of thought to myself, all right, the All-Star race was exciting. There was a lot of side-by-side action for the lead, and it kind of was as if it was like watching a Daytona or Talladega on the intermediate tracks whatsoever. But I think the reason why NASCAR is doing this, is they want to have close racing all around. I mean, sure, Daytona and Talladega, is close racing, but what's been going on with the intermediate tracks the last couple of years? I mean, it's mostly guys have been racing for like second place whatsoever. So NASCAR kind of came up with a solution saying, okay, why don't we come up with a rules package, that could have pretty much competitive racing, guys racing side by side close to each other, driving the snots out of each other. Then, of course, we want to see like the drivers like work control of the cars, whether if it's slipping or sliding or whatever. Now the drivers have had some different opinions on this. And of course, you had one Hall of Famer that kind of chimed his opinion on Twitter, saying like, oh, like, NASCAR is just doing this and this and this every year, like just because like, they want to make it exciting and then pretty much for us to hate it and whatever. I mean, think about the rules packages that the Xfinity series did the last few years. I mean, Indianapolis was a success last season. Then you go to this year and they pretty much decide, okay, why don't we use this at different tracks and see what happens? Pocono was a beyond disaster. I don't even know why, they had to use that in the first place. Michigan was okay. I mean, it was like watching a Daytona or Talladega all around. But then the race at Indianapolis this year I thought was exciting too, because you had a lot of bump drafted and, of course, side-by-side action for the lead. And, I thought that was exciting too. But I would have to say, go into next year, I really want to see how this all-star package is going to work. Now, is it going to be the same like we saw at the all-star race in May? I don't think so, because NASCAR is going to go through the wind tunnel. They're going to go through all the drawing board, and they're going to just come up with a solution saying, like, okay, we have a way that we are going to make close racing, at all tracks in between. But I think it's going to be very interesting, and I can't wait to see how this is going to shape up next year. And, and we're just going to have to see which drivers are successful with this package and which drivers are not successful with this package. So we'll just have to see.
One of the things we talked about after the All-Star race was how exciting the racing was. And you brought it up, that side-by-side, really good speed, really good handling. It was fun. And if NASCAR wants to bring back this fan base that has been in and out over the last many years, this is a way to make it fun. First on the list, you had the Charlotte Roval, which Loki, my partner, Mike Smith, watched the entire Roval. Came in last night. Mics are hot. We're talking about all of our little things that we do on Tuesday night. And he said, hey, man, I had a really fun time watching the Roval. I'm like, whoa, you watched the Roval? How cool is that?
Yeah.
He enjoyed it. He's looking forward to more races like this. So if NASCAR can give the fans, not the diehards like you and me, but the people who have maybe fallen out over the years. Oh, well, one of the complaints that I hear a lot is NASCAR changes the rules as they go along. Very true.
Yeah.
We've all seen it the last 20 years or so. And I'm going to go back to around 1998 where, this change, mid-season change here, mid-season change here. And then with that ignorant car of tomorrow, they had to change the rules every other week because they were having so many problems keeping these cars down on the track.
Right.
Just make a set of rules. Those are your rules. You don't hear Major League Baseball changing the rules halfway through the year. You don't see National Football League, although with the latest sack controversy or roughing the passer, or it's funny, finally we have a rule in the NFL that doesn't cater to Tom Brady, which I think is fantastic. But Clay Matthews' witch hunt needs to stop. If you're not tough enough to play football, get out. And if you're not tough enough to handle 200-mile-an-hour speeds in a car, get out. Stop trying to make the cars slower. Stop trying. Please never stop trying to make these cars safer. That is the best thing that has happened in the last 20 years.
Right.
Is that these cars are so safe. So many new features. The tracks are safer. The cars are safer. The drivers are safer. Are you still looking for a Spider, Corey? I see you looking around.
No, I'm all set with that. But yeah, that actually happened.
What people don't know won't hurt them.
Yeah, that actually happened before we even started the show, guys. And right before we started, I'm looking up at my ceiling. There's a spider, and I'm like, all right, USOB, you're already going down. So I pretty much tried to kill it. And yes, guys, I did try to kill a spider. So I'm not really the biggest fan of spiders, whatever. So I kind of missed the first time, and then it bounced off, and I thought it was literally on me. Then I saw it on the ground, and I was just like, yeah. So that was.
Guys, all I know is you see Corey here every week if you're watching us on YouTube. And if you are just joining us through the magic of Anchor FM and anywhere else you can find our podcast, to hear Corey say some words that would make a drunken sailor cry was the highlight of my night.
Yeah.
All right, where were we? Stop changing the rules mid-season. Get your rules package in. I looked over the rules package that was online yesterday on MSN.com. on their sports NASCAR page, and I agree with a lot of it. It does seem that they're pushing more towards speed and downforce, which I know a lot of people are going to say, well, speed and downforce don't mix. Well, it's a matter of finding that balance.
Right.
Keep the cars on the track, but try to have it carry a little more speed. I remember watching Talladega races where coming out of the coming out of the backstretch, going to 3 and 4. Cars were hitting 205, 210. Now you're lucky if they hit 200. But you go to Michigan, a smaller track, and they're carrying 205 into the corner.
Yep.
Nobody blinks an eye. The reason being is because at Talladega, one wiggle, you're running 4 wide, 15 cars are out of the race. We wait for it every year, the big one.
Yep.
But nobody talks about it at Michigan. Make the cars faster. It's what the fans want. We want speed. We want that door-to-door. The side draft has been amazing this year. And you haven't seen that in years past. Now that we have these fantastic aerodynamic masterpieces, stop trying to make the cars slower. Bring the fans back. The fans that used to watch, Bill Elliott run at about a 210 in Talladega. Watch when, Dale Earnhardt Sr., God rest his soul, was picking and weaving his way from 22nd place with 8 laps to go and win the race. Why? Because the car was just unencumbered. Just go out there and run. Run your heart out. Run that car until it's smoking and spitting fuel.
Yeah.
Give NASCAR fans what they want.
I do agree.
All right. Now, we've already talked about who we think are going to be bounced. We talked about are our early championship picks going to stick? Who is going to be the surprise in this round of 12?
Okay, so I'm going to have to say my surprise for this one would definitely have to go to Alex Bowman.
Okay. Even though both of us have him on the about to be bounced list, you're going to stick with Alex Bowman as a surprise.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go a different route. He's been awfully quiet in the last 3 races. We've heard his name mentioned a few times, but not anywhere near, hopes of winning a race. I think the biggest surprise of this round of the playoffs is going to be Joey Logano.
Okay, I do agree on that.
All right. So, having said that, I'm looking forward to Dover. I'm looking forward to talking about Dover next week. I'm looking forward to all things Dover. But the one thing I'm looking forward to right now, Corey, is hearing you pimp, push, or otherwise prod these people into everything that we have going on.
Okay, so follow us on the C+J Speedway show, or Speedway Review, actually, on YouTube. Just make sure you look us up, subscribe, hit the bell. You'll get notifications, when we go live, before we go live, or whatever happens and so forth. 51 episodes are going to be uploaded so far. And then, of course, follow us on Facebook. We're just, search us up on Facebook, C+J Speedway Review. And then, of course, Twitter, we are at CJ_Speedway. And then Instagram, we are at CJ Speedway. Now, before you pimp out anything or so forth, so I want to give a shout out and a little bit of a story. So my shout out, I'm going to give a shout out to a person named Sherry Carolyn. Now, interesting reason why I say this name in general. I was at, I was at Chelsea's aunt's daughter's 13th birthday party this past weekend. So I meet this girl, Sherry. Well, this woman, Sherry, for the first time.
Time out.
All right.
You went to Chelsea's aunt's daughter's birthday party.
Yeah.
You do understand that would be Chelsea's cousin.
Yes.
Carry on.
All right. So anyway, what's actually interesting about this woman, Sherry, she's a NASCAR fan. And I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you some interesting stuff about this. So she notices my shirt, and I was wearing a Spencer Davis shirt when he was driving the 51 truck for like the beginning half of the season until like next year, whatever, and so forth. So what was funny was she said, "Oh, I'm actually a NASCAR fan myself." And I said, "Oh, really? Yeah, who's your driver?" And Chris, you're not going to believe this, but her driver's Kevin Harvick.
All right, excellent. You know what? Take the MRN out of the heart. That's for you, kid.
And what's actually interesting was we probably talked for like almost an hour about racing, and I have to tell you, Sherry knows all her stuff about racing. And actually, it's funny because before she was a Harvick fan, she actually started off as being a Tony Stewart fan. And it's funny because I told her, I said, when I first started going into NASCAR in 2005, I was a Tony Stewart fan myself because he used to drive the Home Depot car and so forth. And so yeah, me and her started talking like almost like everything, like NASCAR and everything. And I just couldn't even believe my eyes. I was like, I can't even like believe this. Like, how much she knows about it. But Sherry, if you are watching this right now, if you subscribed or if you hit the bell, whatever, I just want to say welcome, and you're welcome to chime in any NASCAR opinions you want, anything you want. It doesn't really matter as long as it's racing. I'm okay with it and so forth. Now, story time for me. So this
before you get to the story.
All right.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to get Miss Sherry, and
yes.
I'm sure you know the spelling of her name and all that and whatever, but get information. Sherry, if you're watching this, there's only one way that you're going to get this little fantastic gimmick that I'm about to show. You get Sherry's information, and then you and me privately will get together and find a way for me to send this to you. But as a fan, a new fan of the C+J Speedway review, and as a Harvick fan, here's what I'm going to do. I got this fantastic, I call it my freak flag. I got the Kevin Harvick Busch on one side. I got the Kevin Harvick Freaky Fast Jimmy John SchneebitzFernum.com on the other. Special offer just for you. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sign this, courtesy of the C+J Speedway review. Then I'm going to send it to Corey. He can sign it on the same side as me. He can sign it on the other side. He can do whatever he wants. And then Corey will find a way to get this fantastic flag to you as a courtesy, because any new fan is a great fan. But when Corey says you're a Kevin Harvick fan, you got me in my heart. And that's what I'm going to do. My little freak flag that I've been flying all year, even at the beginning of one of the episodes saying, hey, my freak flag is still flying. It's yours, Sherry. It's yours.
It is.
Oh, way to be enthusiastic. Now tell your story before I fall asleep.
All right. So yeah, Sherry, so that's going to be your gift from us. And like I said, we want to say welcome, and feel free to chime in any racing opinion you want. Doesn't really matter as long as it's racing. We're okay with it and so forth. Now, story time for me. So this one was kind of a funny / confusing story, and I think this happened on like Friday. So I have a friend of mine whose name is Nate Davis. So he lives in North Carolina now. And so the funny and confusing story about this was I ended up getting a text from him back on Friday as I was coming out of work. Tells me, he says, oh, I'm going to the NASCAR race tomorrow. And I said, okay, so you're telling me you're going to the Xfinity race on the Roval tomorrow. And he says, yeah. And I said, okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to take pictures. I want you to send them to me. That's going to be your assignment for the weekend. And he says, okay, got it. So now I get a phone call from him. I think it's like 9 o'clock at night, whatever. And now this is where the confusing part comes in. And Nate, if you're watching this right now, I did have to correct him a couple times because let's face it, think of me as the statistic guy myself. I know almost everything like statistics. I look everything up in general. So now he calls me and I asked him, I said, so you looks like you're excited for the race tomorrow. And then he says, well, the race actually got canceled. And I'm like, are you talking about the Xfinity race that got canceled or what's going on with this? And he said, well, the race got canceled and so forth, blah, 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 whatever, and all that. And I just said, well, you do realize that NASCAR's new policy on road courses, if it's raining, they can still race, but they have to have the rain tires on whatsoever. And the funny part was I texted him after that and I said, I looked up the weather and it's not supposed to rain this weekend, and I don't really know where this is all coming from. So now he ends up telling me, saying like, well, the people who invited us called my parents and said it was canceled, so stop it. Yeah, that's what he said to me, was stop it. And I said, okay. Now, if he's trying to start a NASCAR argument, guess what? You're not going to win one over me. You're not going to win one over me because the reason why I'm the stat guy and I know almost everything there is particular. So I told him in general, and I said, okay, I did look up on the weather. It's not supposed to rain this weekend. And NASCAR already has a policy that if they are to race in the rain, let them race in the rain, but you have to have rain tires that goes with it. So now the next day I'm still kind of scratching my head thinking like, okay, something's not adding up because he's telling me that, the race got canceled for Xfinity and there's no way it got canceled like in general. So now what do? I end up messaging his mom, Rose Davis, which by the way, Rose Davis, if you're watching this right now, I just want to say I love you very much. And hopefully you guys are doing well in North Carolina. Now, this is where I end up messaging his mom saying like, so, Nate was telling me you guys were going to go to some race at Charlotte Motor Speedway on Saturday, but it ended up getting canceled, and I don't really know what's going on here. So now she ends up getting back to me, and she says this, and I quote. She says, it was at a NASCAR track in Concord, North Carolina. The ticket said NASCAR, and of course, this guy named Connor Musak, I can't pronounce his name, is a beginner. He is 19 years old and is a freshman in college. His group is Legends, so I'm thinking, okay, so it's probably a different series, the way I'm looking at it. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of my funny and confusing story this past weekend, and all I kind of said to myself was, you could have went to the Roval race this weekend and you didn't invite me. Dude, I could have got my plane ticket and I could have been down there like Saturday morning with my bag packed and, I got my racing gear, my racing hat, and I'm like, all right, let's go to the Speedway. We're ready.
Plane ticket my ass. You would have been Scooby-Doo pedal feet all the way down there. You'd have ran like the Dickens to get to that race. But I will say this in his defense. If you've ever been to Charlotte Motor Speedway, which I have, there are 3 racetracks on the compound.
Yeah.
There is obviously Charlotte Motor Speedway. Then there's the Z-Max, what do they call it? The drag
strip. Yeah.
Yep. And then just a little ways down the road, not on the actual compound, but it still belongs to the compound, is, I believe, a 3/4 mile short track.
Yeah.
That is a part of the Charlotte Motor Speedway complex. If young said man was going to a race and it was canceled, chances are it was due to poor ticket sales and it wasn't being held at Charlotte Motor Speedway proper. It was being held on the short track just off the compound a little ways down the road.
Right.
So I'm going to stick up for him a little bit. I'm going to ease his pain. I don't want Corey Huffnagel giving this kid, PTSD and having him go through therapy for the rest of his life because Corey called him out on his BS. Chances are there was a race on the compound that got canceled or some other unlikely event that causes races to get canceled. I don't know.
Right.
Nobody wants to run a race for big money in front of 18 people. Let's put it that way.
Right.
All right. So now that you've pimped everything out, I want to pimp out last night's Loki Jabroni show. We had a great time. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you steal your favorite podcasts from. I want to give a shout out to a couple new subscribers. I can't remember their names. I did get messages. Thank you very much. If you like music, Corey's the stat guy for NASCAR. I know a lot of NASCAR history, but he buries me, even if he's half my age. But when it comes to music, there are a few people that can top me. And the Ayatollah of rock and roll came out of me last night. Had to correct a few things. Had to, set a couple people straight. But we had a great time talking about our top 10 favorite cover tunes of all time. Country, rock and roll, rap music, R&B, whatever. We had a great time. We have an event coming up on November 17th. I can't remember the location. I know it's in Groton, Connecticut. Constitution State Wrestling is coming back, and we're going to have a good time. We will be signed on once again as the official commentators. I don't know what race falls the next day, but I'm going to be bleary-eyed, but I'll be bushy-tailed. I don't care. Man, we're in playoff season. It's going to be a good time. Also, before we go too far, Corey, I'm a little upset. I got to tell you, a little tear in my eye. I'm going to rub it. Because last night, as we were closing the show, we kind of mocked you a little bit in fun because, you're a valued member of the Focus Digital Network.
Right.
Man, I haven't heard one I love you, Boo Boo Bear, Schnibbits Fernum. And here we are getting ready to close the show, and you have let me and Eddie and the faithful listeners of our show down.
Well, first and foremost, before I end up getting to the Chelsea part, Nate, in case if you're aware, if I end up, or if we end up busting your chops, whatever it is, guess what? We do it because we love you. That's an old saying up here, like in New England. So if anybody busts your chops, guess what? They do it because they care about you.
You're right. If people have asked me all the time, why are you picking on me? Why are you picking on me? I'm like, if I didn't pick on you, it means I don't like you.
Right. See,
so,
that was
Nate.
Yeah.
Stop being a baby, Nate.
Yeah.
Make me come through this screen and slap you, silly break.
And just remember, we care about you. So I just wanted to share that story out to everybody. And
I stuck up for you, Nate. I stuck up for you.
What I thought was you were going to the Roval race this weekend, and then pretty much his mom corrected me by saying, like, I guess it was a Legends race. So I thought, all right, so it wasn't a NASCAR race, but then yet again, it was a Legends race. So I thought, all right, different racing series. I get the gimmicks. Well, I get the the message. So
he's stealing my shtick.
What makes it even better?
What?
Chelsea, I love you.
Oh, Christ.
See, I got that one in there before the show was over.
As well you should. Guys, thank you. First of all, thank you for tuning in. No matter where you're tuning in, YouTube channel, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, wherever you steal your favorite podcast from, we thank you. We can do so much more, and that is where you come in. If you're watching this on YouTube, underneath the description are links for affiliates. If you do shopping on Amazon, WWE, the Gimmick of the Month Club, what have you, click those links. It takes you through the main website, which is LokiandJabroni.com. Do your shopping, no hidden fees, no extra charges, and they will kick back just a little bit to help us cover production costs, maybe some new T-shirts. Speaking of T-shirts, I have a birthday coming up, and if one of you faithful fans are graphic designers, if you can make the little heart that says MRN, the voice of NASCAR, I would wear it proudly. And, having said that, if you're listening on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you steal your favorite podcast from, in the description, you will also find these same links. Do your shopping. If you want to donate to the show, it's Patreon, patreon.com/Loki and Jabroni. It was made 3 years ago, so it does reflect the C+J Speedway review. It's a communal pool. Not that there's a whole lot in it. Don't dive because you'll break your neck. But that's what the Loki and Jabroni show is, the flagship, but the Focus Digital Network is all encompassing. We're trying to put everything we can together to give you the best show possible every single week. We thank you for being here. If you know a NASCAR fan, tell them about this show. If you're someone that just happens to be dating one of the co-hosts and he pimps you out every single week with the I love yous, you're doing your due diligence. Every couple days I see a post. So now I'm going to throw a little love Chelsea's way in a completely platonic, brotherly way. I can't say enough good things about the way she pimps out this show. So I tip my hat to you. I appreciate what you do for Corey and I in our endeavor here. So please don't stop. It's so wonderful. And in the event you ever break up with Corey, still follow the show. I'm still sexy. So, that's the most important thing. Second most important thing, right behind Corey and his stats. That's the drive. He's the stats. I'm the heat. Anything you want to say to the fine folks before we go?
Well, all I can just say is this weekend, speaking of me and Chelsea, we're actually going up to North Conway for the weekend.
North Conway what?
New Hampshire.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Nice. So we'll be up there from Friday to Sunday, and then Monday I am going to the Topsfield Fair in Topsfield, Massachusetts. So in case of you guys wondering why I haven't been there lately, it's because I haven't figured out like what day I was planning on going. So that's pretty much the last day of the week. Well, actually the last day of the fair is I'll be going then. But yeah, all I can just say is North Conway is going to be fun. I haven't been up there in a long time, so it's going to be great, especially now it's the start of fall and with the leaves changing. I just can't wait.
Good call. I will be in Vermont on Friday night, but I will only be there for about 45 minutes to an hour. I am picking up the little Martin Truex fan, my daughter Emma. Hi, Emma. If you've made it this far, if you're not asleep or you're watching this on Thursday, that's
Yep.
your weekly shout out right there. We got really just basic daddy daughter stuff going on this weekend. We will be watching the race. We may watch the Falcons play the Steelers. We don't know yet.
Mm.
That's a crapshoot. Speaking of football, it's nice to see that the Patriots decided to come out of their funk and take the Dolphins to the woodshed and beat them like they owed them money. That had
That's
to
right.
be that had to be fantastic for you to watch.
It was. I mean, the first few games, I mean, we were kind of, the win, Houston, good win, but then Jacksonville, blah, and then Detroit, we just didn't even expect us to lose. And then, of course, Miami, we bounced back. We won. We beat them mercilessly. Now we're playing the Colts tomorrow night, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'm not going to say anything to this. We're literally just going to kick the crap out of Indianapolis because they haven't been that great since who knows when and so forth. And then not to mention, we get Sox coming up on Friday, which is game one of the ALDS on Friday. Chris Sale is going to be pitching game one.
Hopefully by the end of tonight, you will learn that the Yankees will be your opponents.
Yeah, I have to say, if I was Boston right now, I'd have to go with the A's.
Well, Mike said the same thing last night. He because of the rivalry, because of the fact that the Yankees are a 100-game winner and they're relegated to this one-game playoff BS, which I think is stupid.
Yeah.
It should have been the Yankees getting that wild card spot, but now you have the one-game playoff. Whatever. I feel bad for the Cubs last night getting knocked out.
Yeah.
Having said that, I don't know what the score is. Last I knew it was 2-0 Yankees. So we'll see you Friday night. As far as football, because I know I brought it up to you, it sucks to have a high-powered offense and score 30 to 40 points a game when you're giving up even more. My Falcons need help. They got it in the person of Michael Bennett. They just signed yesterday, which may help. We have Devontae Freeman coming back at running back, so the two-headed monster of Freeman and Coleman will be back in action. It's just rough being a Falcons fan, not just this year, but every darn year ever in the history of ever. It doesn't get any better, but I'm not one of these guys that changes allegiances because my team sucks. You don't deserve them at their best if you can't stick with them when they're at their worst. And you have never experienced the Patriots at their worst, whereas I can remember in my youth when the Patriots couldn't buy a win with a truckload of money. So
right.
You're living in the salad years, but the changing of the guard is coming. The Bears are hot. The Dolphins were hot until this past week. The Lions are hot. It's a new wave. With the Eagles winning the Super Bowl last year, it's a new wave. I'm not saying the Patriots are done. I'm not saying that, some of the big power teams are done, but you're watching some other teams come up, and it's very exciting, much like the world of racing. We're watching a lot of young guys come up and battle the veterans for this supremacy called the Monster Energy NASCAR Series Cup. Anytime there's a shift, it's good. It's good. So, looking forward to a great weekend of racing, football. Looking forward to the end of tonight when the Yankees can move on and face the Red Sox, the rightful series that should happen. And by the way, we spanked you a week ago. We're going to spank you again.
Well, we'll just have to see what happens. And, it's playoff time, so anything can happen. So, no, I mean, I'm looking forward to this. I mean, even if we don't make it far, I mean, I still say we had a great season, but
absolutely.
But then yet again, my Alabama team has to play Arkansas this weekend. So for those of you guys that have been hating on Alabama for like the last couple of days,
no, you know what? You know nothing of pain. Saturday night, I go to, and listeners, this before we close the show, this is a real story.
Yeah,
I never do this. I'm at my stepdaughter's band competition. 12 high school bands from around the state, and even one from Swansea, Mass. They come in, they do their little, leaned over to Angela. I said, "This sounds like every college football game I've ever watched."
Oh, Jesus.
With those hollow drums.
Yeah.
But it was fun. They did really well. Again, mentioning Mark Azarju again, his daughters go to a high school in Montville, Connecticut. They were at the competition. They did really great. I've got the Ohio State game in my ear. Ohio State, Penn State.
Yeah.
Back and forth battle. And we get home, and I'm cooking up the sausage and peppers for the next day's football party at Mark's house. And I'm listening to the game, and Penn State takes what I thought was this insurmountable 12-point lead. Everything's in the crock pot. I shut it down. I take the headphones out of my ear. I fling them across the room. I shut the radio app off on my phone. I just crawl into bed. And Angela looks, and she's been giving me crap about all the ties in the NFL. So every time one of my teams is playing, she says, "Oh, this is going to end in a tie." She gets a stink eye. We move on. I walk into the bedroom. She could read my face already. She goes, "It's not a tie, is it?" I'm like, "No, we're losing by 12. F this game. I'm going to bed." Wake up the next day, getting ready to go to church. I open my phone, and on one of the headlines that gets sent to me from a site called Ohio State Bucknuts, because I'm a Bucknut, I'm crazy, is Ohio State scores 2 touchdowns in the last 6 minutes to win. I'm like, they effing won?
Wow.
I turned this off. My heart went through my butt. I'm like, I did not show these guys the faith they deserve.
Wow.
And I felt terrible. I still feel terrible to this day. Told that story at work to another Buckeyes fan, and they looked at me like I had a butt on the top of my head, like, you turned the game off. Yeah, I turned the game off. I was cooking. I was trying to do this. I was pissed off. Yes, I turned the game off. Don't turn your game off. Be a real fan. I am upset at myself because I was not a real fan.
Well, it's funny because picture that with everybody watching the Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Falcons, because here,
stop, my ears are bleeding.
Yeah. Just think about that for 1 second, because that was kind of the same reaction. That was the same reaction everybody had up here.
Yeah. Well, you didn't watch the game with a true Falcons fan, because when we
Right.
go off the air, Eddie will tell you the story. He looked at me. He was ready to pop the champagne. We had a bet. And I said, "Oh, no, look at the clock. There's a fourth quarter. I have sick feelings in my chest." And what happened? I was right.
Yeah.
The Falcons think they're a hockey team. You play 3 periods and you're done. No! Play all 4. Play the overtime. You blew it against the Saints because you can't play overtime. You blew it against the Bengals. I don't even want to talk about it. It's racing.
Yeah,
Guys, go Kevin Harvick. Go Kyle Busch. Go Brad Keselowski. Go, you know what? For this week only, go Jimmy Johnson. Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
All right, guys. He's Corey. I'm Chris. We will see you next week right here on the C&J Speedway Review.
Good night.